Kids Tech Trailblazer. Today we are going to see the phases of ethical hacking. The process of ethical hacking can be broken down into 5 distinct phases. An ethical hacker processes these steps to gain and maintain entry into a computer system. Illustrates the 5 phases that hackers generally follow in hacking a computer system. Phase 1. Reconnaissance. The first and most important step in an attack involves finding out as much information as possible about the target of evaluation. A passive information gathering approach is taken and will not raise any alarms. Patience and creativity are also necessary, as this can be the longest phase of the attack. In the world of ethical hacking, reconnaissance applies to the process of information gathering. Reconnaissance is a catch-all term for watching the hacking target and gathering information about how, when, and where they do things. Understanding competitive intelligence. Competitive intelligence means information gathering about competitors' products, marketing, and technologies. Several tools exist for the purpose of competitive intelligence gathering and can be used by hackers to gather information about a potential target. Using SpyFu. Go to the www.spyfu.com website and enter the website address of the target in the search field. Using keyword spy. Go to the www.keywordspy.com website and enter the website address of the target in the search field. Information gathering methodology. Information gathering can be broken into 7 logical steps. Footprinting is performed during the first 2 steps of unearthing initial information and locating the network range. Footprinting. Footprinting is defined as the process of creating a blueprint or map of an organization's network and systems. Information gathering is also known as footprinting an organization. Here are some of the pieces of information to be gathered about a target during footprinting. Domain name. Network blocks. Network services and applications system architecture. Intrusion detection system. Authentication mechanisms specific IP addresses access control mechanisms. Phone numbers contact addresses. Once this information is compiled, it can give a hacker better insight into the organization, where valuable information is stored, and how it can be accessed. Footprinting tools. Some of the common tools used for footprinting and information gathering are as follows. Domain name lookup Whois. ENS lookup SAMSPADE. Finding the address range of the network. Every ethical hacker needs to understand how to find the network range and subnet mask of the target system. IP addresses are used to locate, scan, and connect to target systems. You can find IP addresses in Internet registries such as ARIN or the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, IANA. An ethical hacker may also need to find the geographic location of the target system or network. This task can be accomplished by tracing the route a message takes as it's sent to the destination IP address. You can use tools like Traceroute, VisualRoute, and NeoTrace to identify the route to the target. Phase 2. Scanning. Scanning is the process of locating systems that are alive and responding on the network. Ethical hackers use scanning to identify target systems' IP addresses. Scanning is also used to determine whether a system is on the network and available. Scanning tools are used to gather information about a system such as IP addresses, the operating system, and services running on the target computer. Port scanning. Port scanning is the process of identifying open and available TCP/IP ports on a system. Port scanning tools enable a hacker to learn about the services available on a given system. Each service or application on a machine is associated with a well-known port number. Port numbers are divided into 3 ranges: well-known ports, 0 to 1023. Registered ports, 1024 to 49151. Dynamic ports, 49,152 to 65,535. Network scanning. Network scanning is a procedure for identifying active hosts on a network, either to attack them or as a network security assessment. Hosts are identified by their individual IP addresses. Network scanning tools attempt to identify all the live or responding hosts on the network and their corresponding IP addresses. Vulnerability scanning. Vulnerability scanning is the process of proactively identifying the vulnerabilities of computer systems on a network. Generally, a vulnerability scanner first identifies the operating system and version number, including service packs that may be installed. Then, the scanner identifies weaknesses or vulnerabilities in the operating system. During the later attack phase, a hacker can exploit those weaknesses in order to gain access to the system. Phase 3, Gaining access. Phase 3 is when the real hacking takes place. Vulnerabilities exposed during the reconnaissance and scanning phase are now exploited to gain access to the target system. The hacking attack can be delivered to the target system via a local area network, LAN, either wired or wireless, local access to a PC, the internet, or offline. Gaining access is known in the hacker world as owning the system because once a system has been hacked, the hacker has control and can use that system as they wish. Cracking a password. Manual password cracking involves attempting to log on with different passwords. The hacker follows these steps. Find a valid user account, such as administrator or guest. Create a list of possible passwords. Rank the passwords from high to low probability. Key in each password. Try again until a successful password is found. Passwords are stored in the Security Accounts Manager (SAM) file on a Windows system and in a password shadow file on a Linux system. Understanding keyloggers and other spyware technologies. If all other attempts to gather passwords fail, then a keystroke logger is the tool of choice for hackers. Keystroke loggers, keyloggers, can be implemented either using hardware or software. Hardware keyloggers are small hardware devices that connect the keyboard to the PC and save every keystroke into a file or in the memory of the hardware device. In order to install a hardware keylogger, a hacker must have physical access to the system. Software keyloggers are pieces of stealth software that sit between the keyboard hardware and the operating system so that they can record every keystroke. Software keyloggers can be deployed on a system by Trojans or viruses. Phase 4, Maintaining access. Once a hacker has gained access to a target system, they want to keep that access for future exploitation and attacks. Sometimes, hackers harden the system from other hackers or security personnel by securing their exclusive access with backdoors, rootkits, and Trojans. Once the hacker owns the system, they can use it as a base to launch additional attacks. In this case, the owned system is sometimes referred to as a zombie system. Escalating privileges. Once a hacker has gained access to the system, the next step is to execute applications. Generally, the hacker needs to have an account with administrator-level access in order to install programs, and that is why escalating privileges is so important. In the following sections, we'll see what hackers can do with your system once they have administrator privileges. Executing applications. Once a hacker has been able to access an account with administrator privileges, the next thing they do is execute applications on the target system. The purpose of executing applications may be to install a backdoor on the system, install a keystroke logger to gather confidential information, copy files, or just cause damage to the system, essentially, anything the hacker wants to do on the system. Once the hacker is able to execute applications, the system is considered owned and under the control of the hacker. Buffer overflows. Buffer overflows are hacking attempts that exploit a flaw in an application's code. Essentially, the buffer overflow attack sends too much information to a field variable in an application, which can cause an application error. Most times, the application doesn't know what action to perform next because it's been overwritten with the overflow data. Therefore, it either executes the command in the overflow data or displays a command prompt to allow the user to enter the next command. The command prompt or shell is the key for a hacker and can be used to execute other applications. Understanding rootkits. A rootkit is a type of program often used to hide utilities on a compromised system. Rootkits include so-called backdoors to help an attacker subsequently access the system more easily. Planting rootkits on XP machines. The rootkit contains a kernel mode device driver called _root_.system and a launcher program called deploy.exe. After gaining access to the target system, the attacker copies _root_.system and deploy.exe onto the target system and executes deploy.exe. Doing so installs the rootkit device driver and starts it. The attacker later deletes deploy.exe from the target machine. The attacker can then stop and restart the rootkit at will by using the commands netstop _root_ and netstart _root_. Once the rootkit is started, the file _root_.system no longer appears in directory listings. The rootkit intercepts system calls for file listings and hides all files beginning with _root_ from display. Phase 5. Clearing tracks. Once hackers have been able to gain and maintain access, they cover their tracks to avoid detection by security personnel, to continue to use the owned system, to remove evidence of hacking, or to avoid legal action. Hackers try to remove all traces of the attack, such as log files or intrusion detection system, IDs, alarms. Examples of activities during this phase of the attack include steganography. Using a tunneling protocol altering log files.